Okay, so I'm going to now tell you about the third part of the historical investigation. I hope that you've been having as much fun as me. I mean, when I go to sleep, I'm just so excited to wake up and make the next one. It's just like Santa Claus. In fact, it's better because I know that this is real. So, here we go. The third part, the evaluation of sources. 5 points, guys. 5 points. 5 points out of the total 25 points. Okay? So, this evaluation of sources, like always, I've got an introductory slide here. I'm going to go over some of the basics. I'm going to show you a really strong sample, and then I'm going to show you a moderate sample, like a middle sample. So that's kind of the goal. I'm going to show you one sample that got a 5 out of 5, and one sample that got a 3 out of 5. And first, I'm just going to go over some of these basics for you. This is a little bit simpler than the other two sections, but it does become a little bit difficult to get higher than a 3 out of 5. So, here we go. What you were asked to do in this section is evaluate. The acronym for that you might have heard or that examiners use is OPVL. You need to evaluate two sources explicitly. You need to evaluate their OPVL. What that acronym stands for is different components of the source, okay? So these are two sources that you used in your investigation, maybe the most important ones, the ones that you feel have the most relevance, maybe the ones that comprise the majority of your summary of evidence. You're going to look at their origins. Who wrote the document? When did they write it? What type of document is it? Primary? Secondary? Is it an image? A photograph? An illustration? A book? A newspaper article? Etc. That's origins. Purpose. What was the purpose of the document? Was it to, for example, if it was by a historian, was it to come to some type of conclusion about supporting a thesis? If it was a primary account, was it just, this eyewitness account? Was it a journal from a military officer? Purpose. If it was an illustration, why was it painted? Why was it drawn? Value. V. The value is why this source has merit or relevancy to your research question. How you, as the investigator, can use this source, whatever it is, a newspaper article, an illustration, a video, to answer with certitude your question. L, limitations. What limitations are in place for the source? Those are the features that you're evaluating. Second thing, format two sources in separate paragraphs. You'll see in both of the samples that I show you that the section C, the evaluation of sources, has two separate paragraphs. In the first paragraph, you're going to evaluate one source. In the second paragraph, you're going to evaluate a different source. So that's just kind of how to format it. Do different sources in two separate paragraphs, doing the origins, purpose, values, and limitations inside of each of the paragraphs. Okay. You can think about it as 8 separate steps if you want. And then the last part, be highly detailed. In the high sample, what separates high samples, which would be a 5 or a 4, from a 3, is usually the level of detail, that the author rises to the occasion and actually uses concrete evidence to support their claims about the value or the limitations. Usually these details reveal intricate links between the origins and purpose of the source and their values and limitations. Okay, so those are the basics. That's kind of where your points come from. Now we're going to show the samples. Okay? First sample is one that I've shown before. I showed this in the plan of investigation model. Oh, no, that's not the one I want. This is the one I want. I'm going to show the question first. The question is, with what justification can it be claimed that it was the leadership of Trotsky which promoted Red victory in the Russian Civil War? Okay, that was the question. In their summary, in their evaluation of sources, they have two sources. Here it is right here. You can see that it's formatted into two separate paragraphs, just like I have on the introductory slide. You can see that it's kind of brief. We got about 200 words per source, 400 words total. And what's great about this sample, like I said, is that it's highly detailed, that it uses quotations in order to detail the claims that the author is making. I'm going to read you an example of exactly how this author does this so that it's more concrete in your mind. It says here, The source recognizes the handicaps and deficiencies of the Red Army, but stresses the point of the Bolsheviks having the right policy, being absolutely loyal and faithful to its people. Thus, the Red Army being the offspring of the people. The limitations, so those are some quotations that give it value and limitations. But also, what's good about the limitation here is in the last sentence it gives a limitation of the source. It says, the limitations illustrated by, for example, failure to mention Trotsky are that the account is subjective and its accuracy affected by omission of detail for political purposes by the time of the terror of 1936 and 1938. This rises far above the level of, it's biased because it's against Trotsky, or it's biased because it's a secondary source. This is telling you exactly how it's biased. It's exactly telling it to you because it's telling you the exact chunk of information that is omitted, Trotsky. And it's telling you not only that, but also exactly why there is an omission of that information, because of the terror of 1936 and 38, which was a very anti-Trotsky movement that Stalin did during those years. Okay, so you're getting very clear, specific information about the limitations and the value. This is really the highest level. This is kind of what you want. And if I spend more time reading through all of this, you'd see that there's more quotations in place. Okay, so this is the strong sample. Both the sources are well done. I don't really want to go through the second one because this really shows the best example. Next one, the middle, the moderate, the mediocre source. This one I showed an example of in the summary of evidence. The question is, to what extent did the Norwegian and Allied sabotage of the heavy water plant in Rjukan hinder Hitler acquiring the atomic bomb? So if we go down to the sample, it's formatted the same way, being that there's two paragraphs. We've got part C, here it is, the summary of evidence. First source is evaluated in the first paragraph. Next source is evaluated in the next paragraph. Now, this only gets a 3 out of 5, and basically what limits this to a 3 is that the author goes through it in a mechanical fashion where they're kind of thinking like a robot. Okay, I need to put the origins, and they put a sentence about the origins. And then next, I need to talk about the purpose, they put a sentence about the purpose. I need to talk about the value, they put a sentence about the value. I need to talk about the limitations, they put the limitations. But there's no quotes that get at the detail. There's no substantiations about the claims that they're making. They don't support with concrete pieces of evidence from their sources what they're saying. Here's some examples. The book was useful because it showed Hitler's view on the atomic bomb and his stance on the atomic bomb when the tide of war was turning. Where's the proof? Where's the quote? How does it show it? We don't know, because they didn't tell us. Henry Stevens' book demonstrates the impact of knowledge of Nazi Germany obtaining the atomic bomb. The limitation of this book is that it only has a chapter's worth of information on atomic bomb and not heavy water. Also, this book can be selective in its writing. Oh, selective in its writing. Well, I wish they told us exactly how it was selective, like the other source. The other source said something was omitted. Trotsky was omitted. And exactly, it told us why Trotsky was omitted. That's a concrete difference between this which got a 3 and that which got a 5. That's what I mean when I say that they're going to want detail. If it's being selective, how is it being selective? If something is being omitted, what was omitted? And even further, why was it omitted? So that's kind of what we're looking at. Those are kind of the differences. We got the low sample that got a 3. We got the high sample that got a 5. And kind of what we're looking at, if we just kind of remember those 3 basic features. You do all that, you're going to have a great evaluation of sources. I think that's it.